I was actually the first film production major at Keene State College back in the 80s. And what you saw was my freshman film production project. And it had a story that was inspired by the Ambrose Bierce story called An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. And I liked the dream aspect of that, where a Confederate soldier dreams about escaping and getting back to his wife, all in the brief moment of time from when they kick the board out from under him and he hangs. And I thought, I've attended enough parties at Keene State College watching people. And I'm thinking, what if they had to drive home? And they all had girlfriends and things, and I thought, we could make an interesting story out of that. So we did, and it was very carefully storyboarded. We shot it in March during spring vacation. And the scene on the jetty, we froze. That was a whole day. It was like 28 degrees with a wind chill probably down around 10. And the actors could get down between the rocks between takes, but my cinematographer and I were up in the wind the whole time. And right now I'm making a documentary about the beginnings of the Keene State College film program, and that film and some others are a part of it. So I've been interviewing people that were in these films, and I interviewed my actress Shelley just recently. And I'm asking her what the most difficult scene to do was, and she said, well, it was the jetty scene, but she said there was one other scene. And then I said, what was that? She says, well, falling into the water when she falls off the jetty, because you couldn't do that from the jetty, you'd get killed. So we waited till spring, till June, because we lived on Taylor River in Hampton, had a big raft, so we paddled it out to the middle of the river, carefully situated it so you couldn't see trees reflecting in the water. And she's at one end and I'm at the other with a camera on a tripod, hoping that we won't both get dumped into the water. She's fully dressed in winter clothes. All she had to do was fall back in the water, and she did. And then we get applause from the shoreline. The neighbors were out watching us. We weren't even aware of it. So I said, well, what was the most difficult part about that? And she says, well, I can't swim. Which I had no idea. So 37 years later, I found out my main actress couldn't swim, and I bumped her in the water. She said I didn't want to ruin the scene.
Could have become a snuff film.
What kind of grade I would get?
Pay for effort.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This question's for Dan Paul for the Hangover film. So back when you were doing that film, you were using film that you cut and cut. How is that different from how things are done today? What's it like doing films now?
It's like what Mr. Spock tells Captain Kirk about stone knives and bear skins. That was shot on Super 8 sound film. And it's all cutting and splicing your original camera film because it's reversal film stock. You couldn't shoot negative. Well, maybe you could in those days. I'd never seen it. And then you would have a print made of your edited master. So any cut you made on the master film, it was a process of cutting it, longer than the final cut would be, because once you trimmed it down, if you went beyond the point where you really wanted to make the edit, you were stuck with that, and unless you wanted to reshoot. In some cases, for that film, we couldn't reshoot. And then a print was made, then sound was added, and for the documentary that I'm working on, I had to have these films digitally transferred, and in many cases, the 4 films I made in college, it was a good thing that I did, because you might have noticed on the screen, the print was starting to turn a little pink. And even though the original is shot on Kodachrome, and the original footage still looks good, the Ektachrome that they would use for the print, that's starting to fade. So I probably got it done just in time, and it's nice that it's preserved. Otherwise, I wouldn't have even been able to enter it in the festival. It was neat to give it a airing, 38 years later.
It's really neat to see some of those locations too, that
Oh,
we're
yeah,
familiar with around here.
Around Hampton,
Yeah, around
Wells
Hampton.
Beach, and stuff.
Dan, I'm curious about the score that you used. There was definitely there's some songs in there, but also the orchestral sort of music.
Oh,
that was recorded.
That was from Gustav Holst's The Planets. It was a cut
Okay.
called Neptune the Mystic.
Uh-huh.
And I had heard that while I was in pre-production. And I thought, that's the kind of eerie, dreamy quality. And it has just enough touch of apprehension and danger in it. And it worked really well for it. And I actually had to redo almost all the sound when I got it back from digital transfer, because the projector that I had in those days, Super 8, had really come into its own as a medium you could actually do production in. And for those of you who may, or even if you haven't worked with Super 8, there's a sound stripe, little thin magnetic stripe on one side, and over where the perforations are on the film, they had to put a balance stripe so that the film would wind correctly on the reels. And Elmo got the brilliant idea of, we can use that balance stripe to put sound on. So I had a projector that recorded on both the main and balance stripes, so you could put sound effects and music on separate tracks, which was it's nothing you even think about now, but it was a huge deal back then. And fortunately, I was able to find, the same recordings of Holst the Planets, and of course the rock and roll songs were easy to come by. And some of the sound effects, the Foley sound, I don't have a pop-up toaster anymore. And I'm thinking, I can have that sound for when the bread pops up. So I have a little portable Blu-ray player in my bedroom, and I took my video camera and put it nearby and just tapped it on the top a couple times to get kind of a similar sounding sound. Put it in the film, and it's like, okay, that works. I was gonna say that's not a toaster.
Well, they will now.
That's how I did that. But it's virtually identical to the way it was on the film soundtrack, but nobody who does the transfers has the proper projection equipment that can handle the two stripes of sound anymore. It's just, I even tried, was it Legacy Box, and no, they can't do it either. It's frustrating. It's fun to get back into those films 3 decades later.
What is it like for you now watching one of them with an audience?
I was looking forward to that more than anything, because the last time that film had an audience this big was in 1982 at the New Hampshire Film Festival that was held at Dover High School. And that film happened to win first place in its division. So it's neat to listen to people's reactions, because going back into the film to finish it off again on a digital basis, it took me right back to where I was back when I was 22 years old finishing it. And now I'm almost 60 years old. So it's, seeing people react and get a positive reaction, that's really a neat thing for me. So I really appreciate that you guys enjoyed it. So thank you very much.
Any other questions? Yes.
I actually have a question for Dad. How did you do that fade-in thing? I've been wondering about that for ages.
You mean where Bill appears in the chair?
Yeah, where he fades in and out.
Oh,
How did you do that?
That's real easy on a computer now. One of the cameras we shot with, the one Jeff owned, had a backwind. So you shoot the empty chair and fade out, backwind the camera, put your subject in the chair, and run the same piece of film forward, but as a fade in. So the background remains the same, yet the object you place in the frame, in this case the actor, just slowly becomes solid. And then you just reverse the process and you can disappear. We did it the same way out on the rocks on the jetty, although that was a trickier one to get because of the lighting situations, even because of the wind, because you can't have the camera move, otherwise you see the rocks move. There were 2 or 3 takes of the one out of the jetty to get the perfect one. Of course, you don't see them, there's no playback. You have to trust what you know, what you've been taught as a filmmaker, and, you know, a week, 10 days later, you get your footage back and just hope that what you've been taught and what you did was correct. And fortunately for us, it was.